you for joining us. So we really appreciate all participants. Good to see your faces. It's good to see everyone. We really appreciate you taking time. And we have international crowd that is also wonderful. So we really appreciate you joining us so consistently. And it is in many ways a tribute to our mentors, which is Maxim Oldsby. Today in particular, we will be talking about his technique, rational self-analysis, who developed it, and he was a very most prominent Black psychiatrist. And at the time of racial tensions here in the country, I think it is also important to emphasize that. And his uncle was the first attorney for Rosa Parks. So I got pretty good lessons from Maldsby about race relations, but it is not enough, for any white person to really know and understand. We may put the best effort to understand. And of course, I have many mentors, but today also important tribute to Carl Simonton, the oncologist who noticed how important our emotions in the process of going through the experience of cancer diagnosis and its treatment. So, and these two men, actually Simonton told me to do my psychiatry residency with Maldsby, and that is how we ended up where we are. So, and both of these mentors were really egalitarians at heart. So because of that, we decided to also give away these for free, a lot of their knowledge in these webinars. And we will hope that it will continue. So we hope that you guys will be sharing the recordings with everyone who is important to you. So yeah, adjust my camera. Yeah, I moved my desk a little bit, so a little bit different light. So also thanks to AJ, Dr. Jonczyk, who is managing the technical aspects of these webinars. Those of you who were in our first webinar, you may remember how lousy I was doing. Perfectly imperfect. And yeah, I was doing the best I could, managing everything. And also thanks to Alexandra, who is adding a British voice, a Polish British voice to it. And it is great fun to work with you, Michael DeBernardi. Dr. DeBernardi is my friend of many years, and the only person on the panel who knew both, Carl Simonton and Maxim Oldsby, whose methods we are using primarily. Of course, you can go to our page, webinar page, and you will see all others that we credit with the information, but these two are our greatest inspiration for what we do. So, Andrew, is there anything that you would like to say, or?
I think that is, we need to say that this is our 12th and last webinar together in this series. And I want to also thank you all you all for joining us, and thank you, Mariusz, Michael, and Ola for doing this together with you. But
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Before we jump into the subjects of our program today, I wanted to thank everyone who filled out the RSA forms for today's practice, because today we are, and for those who have not heard the term, we are going to get to that quickly in a few moments. The RSA is rational self-analysis, and that is how we can get to the source of our emotions. And the way to get to the source of our emotions is not to push them away, but to stay with our emotions and really pay attention to what is happening in my head at that time. So it is not pushing away, but is acknowledging our emotions. All our emotions are important for us to experience. And when we try to push them away, we are not learning anything. And emotions are the key for understanding ourselves individually. So how you can understand yourself. And when you're staying, particularly with an intense emotion, you will see that in your head, there are things going on. And sometimes when these are intense emotions, we ask you to simply take a piece of paper and start writing down what's going on in your head. And in that narrative, and we encourage people to do it just for at least 7 minutes, continuous writing. And in this continuous writing, you may, after 7 minutes, there's still things to write on your mind. Keep on writing. And it is not as much as what happened or even what you feel, but it is more of what you think about what happened. But don't censor yourself, keep writing, because that is the associations that go from that difficult emotion is important, because these thoughts are chained. And really asking yourself, why am I so upset about this? Why it is so important to me, and writing it down, right? So this way we can really deepen our understanding of this particular emotion. So when you are really experiencing intense emotion, asking yourself, why am I so upset? Why it is important to me? Why it is upsetting to me? And keep writing. Keep writing until you have nothing else to write. And then you can put it into the RSA format, and we will explain that. But that is how you get to the source of your emotions. Okay. And today we had 8 people who did the RSA, the form that AJ prepared. And thank you, AJ and Prosoma, for providing the technology that allows people to fill out those RSAs in that format. But you see, filling out the form is not as intensive. The form is great when you return to it. But when you are experiencing intense emotion, forget about the form for that moment. And if you are in the position of really writing down, keep writing down, this continuous writing, and then put it in the form. And so, if AJ, if you could show us the ABCD of the emotions, that would be great, because then it will explain everything.
Mariusz, while he's doing that, hi. And I'd like to know from people how that experience of doing the RSA form online was. If you could just, in the chat, put down some comments on what that was like for you, we'd appreciate it. It would help us improve it for future.
Yeah, we want to make it as smooth as possible for everyone. So yeah, so please share with you. So we really appreciate you putting your effort in not just the form, but also responding to the stress test, the survey of the level of distress that you experience. So yeah, that's. we got like 15 answers from that too. So we appreciate those people and their efforts, because you see, you co-create these workshops, these webinars. Without you, we wouldn't be able to do it. So I'm sorry. Today I'm also on call, so I apologize, but the hospital is, and after the webinar, I need to run to the hospital.
So I also want to thank you all who filled out our mental well-being assessment, or how Mariusz called it, a stress form, but it's mental well-being assessment. So those of you, and thank you for filling out the open-ended questions. This was really important for us to hear your problems in your own words and your desired outcome in your own words. We promise that we're gonna, right now I'm just gonna put in a chat just quick, when do you want to return to assessment of these surveys, to Mariusz? After RSAs, or do you want me to briefly, maybe after RSAs? Let's
yes, because I think we need to move into the RSA relatively quickly, because we want to really address that as soon as possible, because we want to spend most of the time on the rational self-analysis. Otherwise, so thank you for sharing this ABCDs of emotions. That is the model that was developed by Albert Ellis, and then refined by Maxi Maltzby. So you see, when I asked you how to get to the bottom, to the source of your emotions, I asked you to keep writing what's happening in your mind about this event, because really it is not, even though we often say, oh, this upsets me, this makes me angry, she makes me happy, he lifts my spirits, and so on. Actually, it is, we do emotionally everything to ourselves with our thoughts, beliefs, and attitudes about the A, about the what happened. And the emotions are always logical consequence of what we think, of our attitudes. And sometimes we say attitudes because attitudes are really automatic. We are not always aware of having an attitude. Someone else may tell us, oh, you have an attitude. No, me? How come? Oh, no, I don't have an attitude. But an attitude is exactly something so well trained and so deeply conditioned in our psyche that we are not even aware. We are becoming aware of these attitudes when we are experiencing intense emotions. And that is the reason we don't want to push them away. We don't want to distract ourselves from these emotions, but embrace them, stay with them, and really understand what attitudes are driving them. And yes.
Before you move on, I want to put a fine point on something you said, because I don't think we've emphasized it enough. The idea that the consequences, the feelings and behaviors follow logically from the beliefs. And the reason I want to say this, sometimes you'll hear someone say, I'm just really feeling down today, kind of sad, kind of upset. Well, what's going on? I don't know. Everything's great. I'm happy. My relationship's good. No problems. That tells you that there's something else going on, because really, if you believe everything is great and no problems and everything's going wonderful, you're not feeling down that day. So sometimes if we're feeling a certain way, we can almost backtrack to figure out what our beliefs are, because it has to follow. It's got to make sense. So sorry.
No, that is a very good point. And in such instances, when we are feeling down, but we don't know what's going on, it's very important for us to stop and really give this shy emotion a voice. And you see, we can, and also, shortly before this webinar, we were talking about with this Michael, it always need to be very specific to the A. What is it? Because, oh yes, my life is fine. No, but our emotions are always specific to the event about which we have thoughts and beliefs. So that the issue is that if I know the A, what is going on today with me, right? And how I feel and how I act, I can backtrack and guess my B. So the knowing ABCDs helps us to uncover many things. Also, if I found myself having doing something, and I know my C's and A's, I will also be able to discover my B's. So if I know the other three elements of the ABCDs, I can really find the fourth one, why it's so. So we can understand much better our feelings, emotional feelings, and our physical actions. So, and I see, so because and from this ABCDs flows the form of rational self-analysis, which are you going to see in a moment. And I'll ask Alexander to review the chat, because I see that there's a lot of things that went into chat. So if you look at the ABCDs, it is the left column of the rational self-analysis. So whenever we are in this situation that we experience some intense emotions, we want to look at, put that in that format of what happened, exactly, very specific to the event, the time and place, specific time and place, the beliefs that we have, and then C and D, the emotions, emotional feelings, and physical actions. And then we will also formulate how we would like to feel in a healthy C and healthy D. I would like to feel and act in the future such situations, right? And then we use 5 rules or 5 questions for healthy thinking that are at the very bottom to check if the beliefs that we wrote in section B are actually healthy. And so we will go over the whole process. So we will end up with the healthy ABCDs on our right side. And that is what we will be doing now on the basis of the rational self-analyses that were sent to us. So I really appreciate everyone, and in the chat, what people responded to, how it was for them to fill out these forms.
Let me just, yeah, some people say, thank you, it's been great, and I used your strategies for 2 issues the past week. I did the form last minute, so I probably should have taken more time. I have my own way of recording belief work. I was going to do it online, but internet was down and I had to take some photos. I appreciate the format and going through the form. The online system worked well for me. While I was upset, I began to consider the 5 rules for healthy thinking and actually did 180 on my emotional state. I was just like hearing the noise and realizing it was the cat, not the burglar. So,
I'm sorry, I missed the last one.
It was the cat, not the burglar.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I added in the chat box any information that if people have any questions, please add it to Q&A, and I will be collecting all the questions related to RSA form.
So it is an inside thing. So for those who have not participated in previous webinars, the cat, not the burglar. It is the example that we use in our first webinar, or one of the early webinars, that the noise in the hall we may interpret as, oh, it's a burglar that experienced fear. The same noise we may experience it as, oh, it's a friend coming to visit me. Or we can have neutral emotions. We can have positive, intense, negative, intense, positive emotions, but also neutral when we think that it's a cat that knocked down umbrellas stand. So that is the example of how different beliefs about the same event may cause different emotional feelings. So thank you very much, Alexandra. So
someone just said that I did feel triggered and felt it in my body and mind when I was filling one of the forms. It was difficult to concentrate. I tend to get overwhelmed when feeling triggered. So that was one of the responses in the chat box.
So thank you very much for this, and that this gives us also an important thing. And I know particular people who experience trauma, and many therapists who work with these people use the word trigger. And or in common language, we very often say, "Oh, someone is pushing my buttons." And one of the best way of stopping people from pushing your buttons or getting triggered is to realize that you don't have buttons, and these are not triggers. So you are not a mechanical thing that something happens and you have no other way to respond, because like a trigger, you pull the trigger, the bullet goes out, right? Or in a loaded gun. You are not like that. A is not a trigger. A is not a button that is pushed. A is the event that you have beliefs. You may have, it may feel like it is an automatic, because you might have, if you went through the same ABCDs multiple times, it became a habit, you don't have to consciously think about it. That is what we call an attitude. And therefore, I prefer really, one of the first steps that I work when I work with people with trauma, and Michael has much more experience in that, and Alexandra, with working with these people. But one of the very important things is changing in semantics. It is not a trigger, it is a cue. And when I change that, oh, if it is a cue, it is the A actually, it is a stimulus. It is an activating event, and between the A and C, I have a B that I can modulate, and I may change. It may take time for me to do it, but to learn that, particularly with trauma, but it is possible. Michael, do you want to chime in here?
No, I agree with you. And I think especially right now, the word trigger is a trigger, you know, with what we're seeing going on. So it is about the semantics, and we think that those are little things, but they're not little things. So even getting that idea out of a trauma victim's head that they have triggers inside them and triggers outside of them gives them more of a sense of control. And I also use and prefer the word cue. You have external cues and you have internal cues.
And so, yeah, so we will move. So today we are talking about transformation at the source, and also we want to address the transformative forces, hopefully transformative forces that happen in many societies right now, and particularly that the United States is experiencing. And so you see, we started these webinars to address the pandemic of COVID-19. And COVID-19, we might have forgotten what it even stands for. COVID-19 means coronavirus infectious disease, COVID. 19 is for 2019. It is the year it was discovered, right? So COVID-19. But then we have 2019 was also a 400th anniversary of something. And maybe in chat, some people may tell me what happened in 1619. There was another epidemic that started that year. What started it is the first African slaves were brought to the American continent. And that was the beginning of racial inequalities in the United States. We have racial inequalities all over the world, and that is very painful to everyone. And I went with my daughter to one of the protests, and it was, I couldn't feel differently when it's going to end. Actually, it reminded me when I was back in Poland protesting in the late 1970s and early 80s, and then later again in the mid 80s and so on, protesting the communism and the atrocities of that. And there was a moment of hopelessness, actually, and helplessness. And the tears come to, this is ever going to end, this injustice that is happening in many places in the world. But at the same time, there's hope. We're seeing so many young people. And actually, I went to some other protests, and not all of them were non-violent. I didn't see anybody become violent, or even close to violence. But I couldn't say that they are peaceful, because they are really expressing really a lot of anger and hurt. So they are loud. So I don't know. So they are peaceful in the sense that there's no violence, but they are very loud and very critical of the current situation, and strong emotions are being expressed. So yes, and it is at the time that this pandemic, the COVID-19, affects Black and brown people much more than the white people or and other races. So we have that situation that 400 years later we have the inequalities, systemic inequalities that also translate in how deadly is the pandemic to people of darker skin. And so we are not often aware of where these emotions are coming from. And we will start with one of the RSAs that is actually addressing that. So thank you for the person who submitted that RSA, and we will address it here in this forum. We will get to that RSA in a moment. Let's stick to. We will answer some questions first, and because in the announcement of this webinar, we asked several questions, and we will answer these questions. And again, we are in the habit, Michael and I, and Alexandra and AJ, we are in the habit of using humor during these webinars. And it is not to dismiss the importance of what is happening in us or around us. It is not dismissive. Actually, it was Carl Simon, and remember, we were working with people with advanced cancer. He said that our work is too serious in order not to approach it with a sense of humor. And humor and playfulness actually increases our creativity and energy. And that is, these are two things that we need to solve problems. We need more energy and more creativity. So even though during this protest that I had privilege of participating, there was a lot of humor, and that also and jokes, and it also reminded me how we were when I was really young and protesting back in Poland, the communism, and how jokes were really part of our weapons, and it was maybe not as much to harm the oppressor, but also to lift the spirits of the oppressed. Since we are making the transformation of the base, transformation at the source. So first, one of the questions that we asked in the announcement of these webinars is how I can keep from difficult emotions from coming back. So how can I do that? So first of all, it is doing the RSA, rational self-analysis. Why? Because then I understand how I'm creating my emotions. Once I will understand how I create my emotions, I can I can understand it. I can formulate healthy beliefs from it, right? So Michael, please jump in if you have any answers to that, to these questions that were asked to be answered in this webinar. So thank you very much for asking these questions, and we want to address all of them. So another question was, how can I stop?
Before we move on, let me add a little bit to that first question. The key to eliminating emotions and not having them come back is practicing the new emotions. It's all about practice, and we'll spend some time today on rational emotive imagery, which is an imagery type of practice. But when you do your RSA, I don't know how Mariusz does it necessarily. When someone does an RSA and does the side that has how things really went and didn't work so well versus the healthy side, once they've identified the healthy side, I literally tear that piece of paper in half for them, throw out the old side that they didn't want to be, and just have them keep the new side and say, this is what you want to focus on. The more you practice this, the more you go through that, the old stuff that we threw away isn't going to come back. So it's about practicing the healthy side of things is the best way to inoculate yourself against the old stuff coming back.
Hi again. Michael DeBernardi here. Sunday we had our 12th and final webinar, and the discussion mainly revolved around completing a rational self-analysis in RSA. And as we were talking about different ways we use it, Dr. Wirga made the point that different clinicians complete the RSA, teach the RSA in slightly different forms. And one of the things I had said is that often with my clients, once they've completed the healthy side of the RSA, I actually have them fold it down the middle, take the unhealthy side, tear it off, throw it away, and get rid of it so that they're just left with a healthy side of the RSA. I wanted to provide a little bit of context as to why I do that and how it makes sense for the way I practice clinically. So most of the clients that I do therapy with are victims of severe trauma, usually from an early age, and most of them are survivors of human trafficking who've come to a specialized program that we run. So this is a very challenging clinical population, and in many ways some of the most damaged psychologically and emotionally of any population I've ever worked with. So the work that we do with them is an extended type of work that often takes many years of therapy. In a lot of ways, we're completely rebuilding their sense of identity, their entire belief system, because the trauma they've been through, the experiences they've been through, have created a very unhealthy belief system. So once I have a client who has began to identify healthier ways of thinking, healthier ways of being, then what I do is I want them to get rid of that old self. I don't even want them to have it as a reference to go back to, because I'm really helping them to rebuild from where they are into a new, healthier future. Now, of course, anyone who's been through challenges like that has also developed some strength and some healthy beliefs. And certainly over the course of treatment, as we are able to identify them, I will move them over onto the healthy side and make sure that the new beliefs encapsulate those for them. But the unhealthy ways of thinking and feeling and being for them are of no use anymore as they're trying to move on in their lives. And so I want to support and encourage them to be in the here and now and setting goals for the future and moving ahead in their lives. So just wanted to give a little context for how I work. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much, Michael. But Michael knows very well that I do it differently. And you can see that there is no one ideal way. The way I'm doing it, and we are going to come back at the end, I ask people to practice the right side, the healthy side. And what we do with the left side, you will learn at the end of the webinar. But yes, Michael is correct. We will practice the right side. And how to practice the right side, the healthy side, we will talk more. And now the thing is that we will always have the propensity of how can I stop the negative thoughts from popping in my head? No, you will not be able to stop. You will have thoughts pop into your head all the time, and different, positive, negative, healthy, unhealthy, different thoughts. And so it is important to see that, hey, while these different thoughts are popping in my head, I decide which I keep, right? So really memorizing the 5 rules for healthy thinking is the key, because then I know which are healthy, which ones I want to keep, right? So, and also with these different thoughts that may pop in my head, also different emotions may come back. Also the ones that I really worked on. Of course, when I practice the healthy side, the likelihood of those emotions coming back is very low. And if they come back, usually they come back less intensely, less frequently, and they stick around shorter for shorter period of time. But still, if they come back, it is good to see if there are any new beliefs that are related to these emotions. But usually, if I got out effectively from that emotion before, I can do it again. So this all the RSA, the rational self-analysis that I did, will help me for the rest of my life. So coming back to that is good.
And there was another good point you made there, Mariusz, among your many good points.
Thank you.
That people tend to, when they have what they think of a relapse, oh no, I went back to that unhealthy thinking again, start to beat themselves up. And that's really important that we emphasize for our clients, but for us as well, all of us. When you make that mistake of going back to the old emotion, you don't beat yourself up. You don't give yourself any intention. What I tell my clients is it's really about 2 things. You're going to have the relapses. The old beliefs are going to come back. You want them to be further periods of time between those relapses. And when they do happen, they last a briefer amount of time. It's not realistic, especially as you're learning this, to say, okay, I'm going to get rid of those and they're never going to come back. Rather, they're going to come back. Let's see how much space I can put between that and how quickly I can use my healthy thinking skills to make that period end and get back on track.
Yeah, and Michael makes another great point, and I like to further emphasize it, that you see, we don't need to be afraid of our emotions anymore, all right? Even if they come back, that isn't, we know what is their source now. And if there is still something at the source, we can stay at this source and learn more about ourselves, right? So a lot of people, in particular in Western civilization, is emotion phobia. Oh, I'm not supposed to feel these things. No, if you are feeling them, you are supposed to feel them. So yes, embracing your emotions, really recognizing, hey, these are really normal things for me to experience. So again, RSA is not to be getting rid of emotions, but to really understand ourselves and our emotions and really living life fully with all emotions. And we were giving examples of what positive emotions sometimes are and may not be healthy for us. So capacity to experience all emotions is very important and healthy. So, and then there was a question, when is the most effective time to do the rational self-analysis? And I think we already answered that question. It is whenever I'm experiencing any intense emotion, is a great time to really look at what is the source, because reaching for the source is great at that time. And really spend, just maybe not moving into the form right away, but rather piece of paper, and keep asking myself, why am I so upset? Why it is important to me? Why it is upsetting to me? And then what does it mean to me that what happened? So be very specific in that time and moment that you experience these emotions, and really dig into what is the meaning of that for me, that I'm so upset about. And writing as long as it takes, but minimum 7 minutes, and then putting it in an RSA form. RSA form. All right.
Mario,
So,
in addition to the writing assignment, though, what I do with a lot of my clients, because everybody has one of these, you have the voice memos on there. If you're in your car and you're upset or something's going on, you don't have to wait till you have a piece of paper to write for 7 minutes. Hit the voice memo, just start talking, everything that's going through your head. Later on, you can go back and transcribe that or listen to it as you're filling out the RSA form, and you'll be surprised at how many beliefs, healthy and unhealthy, mostly unhealthy, that you expressed at that time in your voice memo.
Also, thank you very much, Michael. It is, you can train your phone to recognize your voice and try to convert voice to speech. So you can have two apps open. One that records your voice and recording, and then the other app you may have like email app, or I usually do email app, and then it may be converting automatically. You have a little microphone next to your keyboard, and that may convert your voice to text, and you could email that back to yourself and then compare the notes that were. It is not perfect yet, but it's getting better. Actually, Google voice to text is somewhat superior because it uses the artificial intelligence, while Apple one is using only locally stored patterns. So yeah. So, but at the same time, less privacy with Google. But likelihood of someone surveilling your own RSA is really low. Okay, so can you put up the first poll?
Sure.
Oh, in the meantime, I wanted to comment on someone who said, this past week I had so many opportunity to do rational self-analysis. One major revelation for me was that I can have neutral feelings. For example, I'm going through radiation and I don't have to be positive about it or negative. I can be neutral. Very life-changing for me. Thank you. We appreciate your comment. Thank you very much. That is really profound, to understand that we have emotional choices. Oh, thank you very much. A lot of people. So there is zero no's. I mean, I don't remember ever having this result. So that is great. A lot of people got onto healthy semantics of the question, but there is nothing that I have to do. But if I want to benefit most from these techniques, it is best that I do RSA in writing. And sometimes, yes, it is true. Sometimes I will not be able to write, but I will. But that is very important that I do it eventually in writing. Why it is so important? Because you see, we can only have one thought at a time, and it was Descartes who said, I think, therefore I am. But it was Paul Sartre that said, okay, who is thinking that thought that I think, and who is exactly who is, right? So it is thinking about my thinking. So it is meta thinking. And in order to be able to think about my thinking, I need to put my first thinking on paper, or on the screen, or record it in some way. They can look at it and start thinking about it. So that is an important part. So thinking about my thinking can happen only when I have a solid recording of one of my thinking, and having it written down on a paper, on the screen, or whatever, is the first step of doing it. And thank you, AJ, for providing that form, which is really, it is less intimidating online actually than doing it on paper for a lot of people. So thank you for doing that. Any comments that you have, Michael, to this? Paul?
No. Well, I think it's interesting. Yes, the answer that was given most is the right answer in terms of semantics. But I will say that as you get more familiar with doing RSAs, there is a bit of it that you can do in your head. I don't always have time to sit down, and I still, after doing this for 25 years, I do still sit down and write out an RSA from time to time. But more often than not, I kind of have a quick process I can go through in my mind to look at the beliefs and then ask myself the questions and try to do a modification on the fly. So that is something that you can do. We definitely recommend, as you're first learning it, write as many as you can, but eventually you'll get to the point where you can kind of do a shorthand version of it.
Yes, so that is a very important point that what Michael makes, is that if you do enough of them, you will come to the point that this one that you made on a particular specific event in your life, you will generalize to other events. So healthy thinking will become a new habit. So you will be doing this RSA in your head automatically. You will be questioning your own thoughts automatically. That is what is going to be happening. And that is great, that is normal, and that is what we are hoping for to happen, because that is the goal of the process. So I have some glare in my face. Huh? So yes, and that we will talk about generalization when we will talk about the practice. Okay, and then there were questions that we got earlier on. What to write when nothing comes to my mind, when my mind goes blank during this automatic writing when we ask you to do? Okay, if you are experiencing intense emotions and you see the piece of paper and it is blank, or you try to record something and nothing comes to my mind, keep on. You can say, "Oh, my mind is blank," and then keep asking yourself, "Why I'm so upset? What does it mean? What just happened? What does it mean to me right now?" And then moving through that. So that is an important part of it. Keep asking yourself, and nothing comes to your mind. Write down. Still nothing comes to my mind, but keep doing it for at least 7 minutes. Also, you can approach your emotions like you would approach a shy child, right? Be patient. So giving yourself at least 7 minutes to familiarize with these feelings. So you may not even want to be as intense if by asking these questions, "Oh, why it's so upsetting me? What is the meaning of it?" Just be gentle. Okay, I'm here feeling these emotions. What is it saying? What is the voice of the shy kid inside of me, or shy person? Or you can you have more tenderness to a shy animal, right? So just approach yourself with this tenderness, and really be very tender to yourself and your emotions, and gently asking. So not yanking, trying to yank out those thoughts and beliefs, but out of you, but really gently asking yourself, right, tenderly. The other question was that we got is it enough to do only the left side of the rational self-analysis? If you work with someone, it is enough. And that is really the most important part, because that is something that we cannot do for you. And today you will learn the rest of the process. So you will learn everything, how to do the right side. But one thing that we cannot do for you is particularly the section B of the left side. That is we cannot do it. And of course, as therapists, we can put you back in the state of emotional pain and recreate that emotional pain and recreate these beliefs. But we don't like doing that. We prefer that we are already in emotional pain. Why won't you keep writing and bring whatever you write? It doesn't need to make sense. Please don't censor yourself. Just bring whatever you wrote with those 7 minutes or 14 minutes or however minutes you took to really put down what was on your mind when you were upset. Would you agree? Yes.
Do you think there is a difference? Do you think there is a difference between typing your thoughts and writing it down on paper, like with your hands?
I mean, maybe for different people. I think that people my age, that we prefer to really write them down on paper. Younger people are much more comfortable with typing them up, or maybe, so I don't think that there's one way. Or recording, I mean, more people, I mean, I'm using the recording very often. If someone is in emotional pain in my office, with the permission, I'm using the voice-to-text software to catch everything that they are saying, because sometimes it's really rapid, and I may not be able to write down myself. And sometimes I'm doing it for the patient, noting what's flowing from their mind, because it is so fast, and I don't want them to slow down the process. I want to really record everything that flows in that moment, all the associations, everything, all that flood. I want to have the recording of it. Usually it is on the patient's phone, so not for me, it is for the patient. And remember, we prefer using the word participant because it is a participant in the process. It is not me, therapist, and the patient. We are all in the same thing. And as Michael said, it applies to all of us. We all need to be doing it from time to time. But we know the technique and the technology. That is the reason that when we bring it to us, if you wrote this left side, it is, we have really something to offer you, to help, to change. And you will see in the process here, the group can help you too. And there are a lot of self-help groups that use this process. And the requirement is that you just do the left side, and people will help you with the right side. So whenever you are in the group process somewhere, that self-help group processes of rational behavior therapy, you will see that you can do the left side, and the rest of the group is going to help you with the rest. And you are the expert. You will decide what you want in that parasite in the end.
Thank you.
And you're welcome. Thank you. No, I want these questions to be asked. So we are really, because this is the end of this last webinar, so we want to really answer all the questions. So the last question that we will address now is, what if the new thought meets the, so I did the RSA and I see the old thought and I formulated a healthy new thought, and the new thought meets the criteria of being healthy, but I don't believe it. Yeah, and that is not uncommon, actually. Actually, Carl Simonton used to say, we need to earn the right to believe in that new thought. We decided it is healthy, but we don't believe it. What practice, that is where the practice comes in. That we will address the practice, how I can start believing something that I don't believe. It is through mental practice. And we will we'll come back to that question again at the end of the webinar.
We have some comments in the
yes,
chat
please.
box. Thank you for this series, this opportunity, and sharing the RSA process. I'm headed to the process now, but I'll be looking forward to the following with the new recording. And we have another one. This happened to me last week. I changed my fear to a positive benefit with imaginary and rational thinking when I received my new treatment, and I also keep a journal.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that. So yes, so now you know what is the most important part of your journaling. It is not as much, you can put the event in one sentence, but keep on about your response to that event. That is the most important part of your journaling, and bring that type of journal to your group or to your practice or to, I wanted to say to these webinars, but it is the last one. So. But we will offer maybe a different format afterwards for those who want to continue practice that. We will have something in the offering in the near future. Okay, so let's move to the first RSA. Michael, anything before you want to add or anything else?
No, I think let's get into it. We are down to almost our last hour, so we got to make sure we cover it all.
Yes. So can you show this RSA? Thank you. So I've been talking a lot, so I'll ask you, Michael, to really read what's on it.
Well, when we looked at the ones that were submitted, there were a lot of very good ones. They were all very good, the ones that were submitted. And this one, of course, the event of the shooting of Black people in this country by police, that's on all of our minds. And Mariusz and I debated, do we just jump right in with that one? And he said, yeah, let's do it, because there's a lot of emotion around that right now. So,
and also it was the first that it was submitted of the forms of all the RSAs that were submitted. That was the first one. So I think that honoring the situation, that is what is happening right now in this country, and honoring the fact that it was the first one that was submitted is important.
Okay, so I'll go over the left side of this and make some comments as we go. So AJ, if you could be ready to scroll when we need to. So this
if someone is, whoever filled this out is participating right now, and we would invite you to make a comment or come to the panel, or we want to be honoring also. You can also send us private message through the chat. So we can keep it confidential as much as possible of your identity, but you can send us privately chat. You can select at the bottom right, depending on the device that you are using, but there is a feature that you can send private chat to us, and we can respond to you privately or online with our voices without revealing your identity.
Great, thank you. So let's just go down this in the typical way that we read them. We talk about, we usually start with A, activating event, jump down to C and D, then come back to B. So on this one, the activating event, shooting of Black people in this country. How do you feel about that? Disgusted, disillusioned, and what did you do? More reading to educate myself on the police system. So very good response to that. So jumping back up to B then, so what are the beliefs then that lead to you feeling disgusted, disillusioned?
I'm sorry, let me just emphasize the process. Did you see Michael went through the ABC, that he went through from the left side, and then he focused on the emotional goals and behavioral goals. Thank you. I will be emphasizing the process, how you do this.
Thank you. So if we go back to B, so what were the beliefs going on for you? I'm sad to be in a country founded on anti-Black racism, but every developing post-colonial country has this in some form. It's sad and makes me angry. So a couple comments I want to make on this. So if you scroll back up to A, shooting of Black people in this country by police. So it's certainly in the purest sense of the term, this is an activating event. A lot has been activated by watching this week. Sometimes what I see is that when you take too big of an idea, too big of a concept, it keeps it much bigger, and it's hard to kind of focus on what are my individual reactions. So thinking of an activating event that is more of a specific event that you encountered. So when I read this at first, yes, I had all kinds of reactions even to seeing that. But then when I thought of one of the, seems like hundreds of videos I've watched over the past week of a specific event of somebody being shot, somebody being hit, somebody being groped, whatever, I noticed the other emotions coming up. So we're scrolling back down to see, yes, I feel disillusioned and I feel disgusted, but I feel angry, I feel furious, I feel violent, I feel all of these other things because of the actual event that I'm picturing. So just a suggestion, you can work at it kind of at this meta level, but if you bring it down to a specific event, a specific level, it gives you, I think, stronger access to a deeper trove of emotions that you're experiencing, as well as a maybe additional behaviors that you might engage in. So so just a suggestion. I get a lot of clients that come in and say their activating event is I'm feeling depressed, or I have anger issues. Well, yes, that's great, and that's it at the higher level, but bring me some specific events that we can kind of talk about to
specific in time and place. So yeah, so for example, I watched this video of George Floyd, for example, right? And that is specific element, and then really bring it to that particular thing in the focus. I myself didn't watch the video because I just didn't want to put myself, but I watched many others, so but having one very specific event, place and time when I watched it, so you don't need to even describe the video itself, but the time I watched this video and I felt this way and I acted this way and I had these emotions. That is immediately, even post fact, you will be able to access these beliefs that flow from that.
Great, thank you. So as Mario said, we're talking about the process. So usually the way I do an RSA, the way I teach my clients to do it is, yeah, you start with the A, what happened, you go down to the C and D, how I felt, what I did, then you go in, actually from there, usually I hold off on the B for a moment, on filling in the B. And so what I'll say is, so based on this event, next time you see something like this, we go over to HC. So if you scroll down to the emotive goals, yes, you felt disgusted and disillusioned. How would you like to feel knowing that this is going on around you? And what would you like to do knowing what's going on around you? So right away, you're identifying, okay, this didn't feel right. I didn't feel good about what I did here necessarily. So how do I want to be able to be in the future? You're setting those goals. So then what I do is I take people back up to B. Okay, so now we know how you felt and how you'd like to feel. Let's dig a little deeper into what those beliefs were that led you to how you felt and what you did. So can you scroll back up to B, please, Andrew? Okay, so the beliefs here that were identified, I'm sad to be in a country founded on anti-Black racism, but every country has this in some form. It's sad and makes me angry. So I will let Mariusz actually take us through the process of doing the belief work and the 5 questions. But I will say sometimes we just want to do a quick scan. And one thing that pops out to me there a little bit is what we would call an unhealthy semantic, though I certainly get it, it makes me angry. Right there, someone is saying the shooting of Black people is making me angry. And while that's true on some level, we want to look at the beliefs. What are my beliefs about the shooting of Black people in this country that are leading to my anger? And is there a way that I can modify them? And that's really what we're trying to do in this process. Find a way to change our beliefs so that they make more sense in terms of how we want to feel and what we want to do. So it's going through A, C. So we're going first to activating event, then down to what I felt, what I did, what I would like to feel, what I would like to do, and then we go over to the beliefs, back up to B. So from there then, and then I'll turn it back over to you, Mariusz, we go back up, if you'll scroll all the way up, AJ, to the camera test, HA. So what factually happened? Okay, so this is another advantage of creating a more detailed script around bringing it to a specific event. Because yes, this person who did this is very much right. A camera test, if you remember, is what would a camera capture if it recorded the event as it happened? And what a camera captures, again, is what's happening visually and any sounds that are being made. That's all. A camera doesn't see inside your mind. It can't tell your attention. It can't tell what you planned to do, what you were thinking, all of those things. So the camera test is a way for us to really take out all the fluff, take out a lot of the material in your narrative that leads to those internal cues that create emotions. But this person is right here. What would a camera test capture? Black people being shot by the police in this country. So it's hard to argue with that. It's hard to change that. But if, for instance, you had wrote, when I saw these racist, horrible cops choking the life out of this innocent man, I was so angry. That gives you a lot more material. A camera is not going to capture certain aspects of how you describe it. So make it as detailed as possible. The point of this is, as I've mentioned in previous webinars, oftentimes simply doing that camera test, simply taking out all of the emotionally cueing words, you'll find that the emotional reactions decrease right away. It also gives us more access to maybe what the beliefs were by taking the extraneous information out of how we're thinking about it and looking at it. So, Mariusz, anything to add to that? If not, continue with the healthy debate with B.
No, I think that is very important, and I will comment a little bit about the sequence. The sequence is as we don't want people to, oh wow, I forgot what is the sequence of during the RSA. Don't freak out about it. As you can see, we want, Michael and we are doing it a little bit differently, and so you may do it a little bit differently. When you are in emotional pain, the most important and the meat of the whole process is the B. So when you are already in emotional pain, don't waste your time. Just keep recording of what you are thinking about the event. But if you are, for example, reflecting on the event afterwards, it is good to start with an A, because, oh wow, to put your mind into that thing and be very specific. So, for example, I watched the video of a man being choked by police, right, for example, or being shot by police, because we are talking about a black man shot by the police. That would be the A. And then looking at my emotions and my actions may bring up what is in B. So the reason we do it in that sequence is to really understand my B even better. So once again, when I am experiencing intense emotion, I'm jumping into B right away. But if I'm doing it afterwards, I'm first writing what very specifically, oh, I was really upset today about something. Oh, let me, what time was it? What I was doing, what was happening, what exactly happened. It doesn't have to be a lot. Usually a sentence or two or three is enough. And then, but very specific. And then how I felt, and really experiencing that feeling, and how was I acting, and staying with that will bring us the beliefs that I had about the event. And then, okay, I felt that way, so why I was so upset? What was the meaning of that event to me? What it meant to me that I got so upset, and really writing it down. So here we have, so I'm said to be in a country founded on anti-Black racism. So we will bring also this sadness to C, as you can see. All right. And it is said it makes me angry. I would also bring that anger to C, because that is how I'm feeling. Because so that is, we are looking at the beliefs, and most likely the person who submitted this RSA was experiencing more beliefs than that. So, and then again, while it is tragic, it doesn't make me angry. I am angry in this situation. So we want to eliminate. And what is the belief underneath all anger? Those of you who participate, please put in the chat. What is the belief that usually gets into the anger? One word. Should. Okay. I'm getting angry when I think that things should be differently, or if something is happening that shouldn't be happening, in my belief, right? So whenever you see anger there, it is important that we uncover it. Or very often, there may be it may be covered with a question form, a rhetorical question. Yeah, why is it happening? Right? For example, it is this question is a rhetorical question that hides the belief it should not be happening. Whenever I am asking why it is happening in this country, then it usually should not be happening. And that we see that it has moralistic, absolutistic, idealistic thing to it. So, and then we can look at this country founded on anti-Black racism. Yes, we know that slavery was really an important economical advantage for this country, and without racism, it is impossible to enslave anybody. You cannot enslave someone who you believe is equal to you. Right? So the mentality of equality that our mentors always emphasized, all our mentors actually, all our mentors were egalitarians, that we all are equal. And it is even written in the constitution of this country. But the practice in this country was different. Even the founders of this country owned slaves. So it was so silent. It is like very important that, as we said at the very beginning, we are not aware of many of our attitudes. So they were writing in the Constitution that everyone is equal under the law. But at the same time, they owned slaves. They were not seeing that in themselves. They didn't see the conflict, many of them. So you can see that on the left side, there are things written in this RSA that are true, right? And yes, the many post-colonial countries, someone says tribal narcissism. Yeah, Mitch, thank you for your comment. Yeah, so we think that my tribe is better than yours, right? Well, it is not true. It's not factual. So yes, and we know that post-colonial countries suffered from these a lot of difficult problems. So really, what we are seeing that on the left side, the person most likely censored themselves for not to pull out all their beliefs that are behind disgust, behind anger, behind sadness. So we would, if that person came to us, we would definitely dig deeper into uncovering all these beliefs. So AJ, if you could put when we are now, because I didn't see anybody sending me a private chat on that. Any panelists got a private chat on this? No. So since we didn't get that person who formulated these beliefs, we would engage in these beliefs, but we can say that yes, definitely there is one belief: this shouldn't be happening. The police should not be shooting unarmed Black people. Can you put it down? Because that is an underlying police should not be shooting unarmed black. Thank you. So the police should not be shooting unarmed black people. That is, I think that may summarize, and I don't want to put thoughts into the person's head. And now, for those of you who are with us through the webinar on shoulds, I would encourage you to go back there, because we are not going to engage in a very detailed discussion of that right now. But Albert Ellis, and it even predates Albert Ellis, Karen Horner, she was the one who was in the 50s noticed how we are enslaved by shoulds. And Albert Ellis used to say, don't should all over yourself and others. Because shoulds, the way we are conditioned to use them, are absolutistic, idealistic, and very rarely reflect reality. So we are hiding about our values, moral values. So they are moralistic, absolutistic, idealistic. So we have our absolute values, our absolute morals, our absolute ideals hiding behind the word should, as if these ideals were a form of a universal rule. But there's only one universal rule, that is cause and effect. That means that if something is happening, there are causes that lie in the past for this to happen. So if something is happening, it should be happening. It cannot not be happening, because the causes are in the past and we cannot change the past. So however painful it is, we need to free ourselves from our conditioned way of thinking and say, hey, if something is happening, it should be happening. You see, the problem is that the people who want to solve the problem of race in the United States are very often, and other countries are often, idealists. They are saying, oh, this shouldn't be happening. It should be this way. Everybody should love each other. But it does not dig into the source of what is happening, to the causes. So we are coming to the source today, right? And transforming at the source. So we are saying, if it is happening, it's clearly there are causes for this to happen, right? So what are the causes? It is the racism, right? It is that some people feel justified. And the studies are showing that it's not just white cops. Black cops are also biased against black people, right? So we all have our biases, and the problem is we are blind to our biases. So we need to, the only way is, for a lot of patients, people that I deal with, friends and otherwise, and acquaintances, who have racist beliefs, they are not aware of them, right? But they are revealed. And you can see how many politicians just say something that under the scrutiny of the public, when it is revealed, they wow, it was a racist statement. So we are blind to that. Particularly, people who are white do not feel privileged because of what, right? When we are accused of, no, we are experiencing pain, and we are experiencing suffering. We are experiencing a lot of other things, disappointments and so on. We all have also difficult emotions, and we are not aware of our white privilege. So, and particularly if you are white and poor, you are in a difficult situation. And if someone tells you, oh, you are privileged, it again creates a lot of anger, right? Oh, you shouldn't call me that I am privileged, because I don't feel that way, right? I don't know, I lost my job right now. How I'm going to put food on the table, how I'm going to earn for my family. So that is also a problem. So what is the healthy belief? And the person who here wrote, even though this country was founded on the black racism, anti-black racism, it does not directly affect me. I think it affects all of us. But he already, but it, what would be healthier form to say. So this country, the fact is, this country was founded on racism. And so there is a structural racism and systemic racism, period. And it affects all of us, because people who don't know they are privileged are affected, and people who are unprivileged are even more, of course, more affected. And acknowledging that, yes, it is painful is very important. And the person here is motivated to change it. So that is a very important. So the person wants to change it. So yes, so I can say, yes, how I can change it. And this person says, I want to become a doctor. And also I want to approach solutions in the form of foundation of anti-racism and anti-imperialism to work in Latin America. So the person jumps into to finding solutions. I would move these things into the HD, what I want to do, how I want to do. I want to focus on my studies. I want to study, and there were the patient, or the person also wrote, and on the left side in D, on the left D, that more reading and educating myself. That is very important. So we all need to educate ourselves. And particularly white people need to educate themselves about, and we have good resources if someone is interested in understanding race relationships in the United States. And so what else is going to be helpful here? The fact is that, yes, the racism exists. The fact is that police is shooting on our people. So for me, and while it is unfair, I need to look at what I can do. I can join the nonviolent protests. I may support what I can do right now. I can support the foundations that exist, and the person already had that is very healthy. And until I can change it, I can accept it as calmly as possible, right? Because the fact that acceptance of what is not, calm accept is not condoning it. That is important. I want to find equilibrium, emotional equilibrium in this process. So being as close to neutral emotions as possible, or less angry, because it is unrealistic to be not angry now if I'm experiencing intense anger in the future. So, but accepting the current situation as calmly as possible and focusing on the solutions, right? So acceptance is actually a belief. So I am learning to accept this as calmly as possible. In order to calmly assess the reasons for what is happening and causes for these shootings, and see what I can do to prevent them in the future. So acceptance is not That is an example of a healthy thought. If some other people have some suggestions for healthy thoughts, please send them in the chat. So what would be healthier? Because you see, acceptance is not condoning, acceptance is not resigning. Acceptance is simply recognition that yes, it is what is happening, and like the common cliche, but actually very healthy, it is what it is. But it doesn't mean that it has to be this way in the future, right? So the only way for us is to educate ourselves on the causes, also those that we are, and recognizing that we are blind to many causes because they are invisible, they are structural, they are systemic. And they are, and because they are not identified, they are perpetuated unwittingly. The same way we participate, you see, we have an attitude, and someone says, "Oh, you have an attitude." We usually deny it. No, no, everything is fine. I mean, we don't see those things unless we are able to stay with the source, not dismissive the emotions, but staying with the emotions and learning from what these emotions are telling us. And then I can have emotive goals of, the person said resilience. Yes, so resilience, that I can stay as calm as possible, because the calmer I am, the more effective my actions can be. And you may choose to be less angry, because if anger helps you with some motivation. So let's say if I experience 100% anger, I can say what percentage of anger would be appropriate for me. Let's maybe 20%, let's say, instead of 100%. For some other person, maybe, okay, I want to maintain equanimity. I don't want to be judgmental whatsoever, because it interferes with me addressing the police, or those that I perceive as responsible for that. So for some other people may want to first become really calm about it, because otherwise the anger may interfere with their able to communicate with the other side, but depending on what you want to achieve. And then actions, and the person already put in action, and we can say, study. Oh, Femke, great, great belief. Healthy belief: I have no influence on the behavior and action of others, but I can influence my own behavior and contribute to changing this inequality. Thank you very much, Femke. Great. The Netherlands had also their share of dealing with racism and post-colonial past. So thank you very much. And then another one, while racism is systemic and awful, there are other values on which this country is founded as well. And those may oppose this type of inequality. That is also a great healthy belief. So can you, Andrew, paste them to the right side of the belief? That is, and we are asking all of you to maybe contribute to more. Thank you very much. it is very important to find strengths in this. You know, we know that this one of the strengths of the United States is that it's a melting pot, right? So what are they? Because please bring more of the healthy beliefs. Okay, another person says they are anti-discrimination laws. So yeah, so that is, there are people working, and then they have been. Yeah, so that is a very also important point. In this country, the issue of racism has been noticed very early on, and they were implementing the discrimination laws. We know that 13th Amendment was very important. Okay. So there are some examples of fighting. So that is not like has never been done anything. There is a important thing that we are working on that too. So the healthy thought would be there are examples, and we can build on examples. There are examples of anti-discrimination laws combating racism, and we can build on that. Thank you, Andrew. And the other healthy thoughts here. All right. Okay, so now let's check quickly. Are these thoughts on the right side healthy? You see, you can see I really jump into that, changing the beliefs because without checking the left side whether it was healthy or not. That I didn't apply the 5 rules for healthy thinking to the left side. But these are, but we know that the beliefs should beliefs are not healthy, as are not based on facts, definitely. So the healthy are these beliefs on the right. Instead of going through all five rules, we can just check, would they violate any of the 5 rules? And I will go over them, the rules based on facts. Would any of these things that you wrote on the right side violate the rule number 1, based on facts? Are they factual? Second, do they protect my life and health? Do they help me to achieve my short and long-term goals? Short-term goal of feeling less angry, and long-term goal of doing something about the systemic racism in this country. Do they help me to handle most unwanted conflicts with others? And do they help me to feel the way I want to feel without abusing any substances? Right? Rule number 4, handle the conflict. Yes, we will be in conflict with people who have different values and different view of race in the United States. and other places. This person was talking about other places too. And how I can handle this, okay? All right, and then looking at, will that lead me to actually feel the way I felt in D and act the way I felt in C? So I don't see anybody considering the new beliefs as obeying at least one of the rules, so they are definitely healthy. Not so all of them obey at least 3 of the 5 rules, but it looks like they obey all 5 rules, according to the participants not voicing their, not submitting anything that would say that they are not healthy. So thank you very much. That this is one, and now if you did this RSA, the assignment would be that you will practice at least 3 times a day the right side of that RSA, that you will read, that you would look at, I would, that you would read the number 1 for at least 30 seconds, or half a minute, maintaining that in your mind while seeing yourself in the same situation, but this time feeling like you wrote in healthy C, how you want to feel, and acting how you would like to act. And then you move after half a minute to the second part, and you really want to maintain calm breathing and relaxation. This way it is going to do that. And half a minute is a minimum, because our thinking brain, the prefrontal cortex, takes a little bit, it is much faster than our limbic system. That is what Maltzby used to say, that our limbic system is lagging behind the thoughts. So we need to really, really repeat it at least for half a minute, but keep on doing it more and more. The more you practice, the more you will become familiar with it. And number 3, and then you go to the number 3, and you go to number 4, and that's it. All right.
Mariusz, before we move on, and I know we have a couple more things to do before we finish, could you pull that back up, AJ, please? Honestly, if a client came to me, or a friend who I was working with on this came to me with the RSA, with that ABCD, I would look at that and say, really, I think that's a pretty healthy ABCD. If you see these things on TV,
the left, yes,
you believe this, and you're disgusted and disillusioned, and you went and educated yourself, my question would be, then what's the problem here? Usually when we do an RSA, it's on a situation that didn't turn out, we didn't do what we wanted to do, we didn't feel the way we wanted to feel. And so I would actually say that that was pretty good. So RSAs, and RSAs can be useful if you want to understand, why am I feeling this way? Let me go back and see what my beliefs are. But I think they are most useful when we're trying to change something about ourselves. We know we're not going to change, at least in the short term, Black people being shot by the police. But I don't think you want to get rid of those emotions of disillusionment and disgust. And I don't think you want to change those behaviors of educating yourself. So this tool is most useful when you're looking to really change something that didn't work the way you wanted it to.
Thank you very much, Michael. All very good points. Yes. And as you could see, even though I've been doing it for a long time, when I was suggesting it, it is very hard to do when you don't have the person who really wrote that RSA with you to really work with them. But you could see, even though I've been doing it for a long time, it was the participants who contributed 2/3 of the answers of the healthy form beliefs. So really doing it in a group is so valuable, because again, we don't see everything, even though we may have a lot of experience. We don't see everything that's going on. So we spent significant time on this RSA. I don't know if we want to move to another RSA, and I would rather focus on just this one. because I think that was powerful, and it is really reflecting what is happening right now. We have several examples of other RSAs that were really very well done, and so we will. But we want to honor the gravity of the situation and stay with it. Not that others were not important; they were also very important. And, we may record something separately just to address these RSAs as an examples that came to my mind, maybe with Alexandra or Michael if he is available, and do it offline. So I would like to now your input. How was this experience for you? Are there any questions, if you could put in the chat, that you have about the process?
There was one question in there, Mariusz, from Mary, saying, given what I said, is there a downside to working with situations that are not associated with strong or intense emotions? So to clarify, no, there's no downside. Anytime you're doing any work at all and looking on how your thoughts are connecting to your emotions and behaviors, that's valuable work to do. The point I was trying to make is usually we're using the RSA as kind of a problem solving tool. And so we tend not to focus on those things that were not strongly emotive. But please, as many of these as you want to do, all the practice in the world is great. And you may find, even if there's not intense emotion tied in there, that you get some real insight into yourself and the way your mind works.
Yeah, and actually the subtle emotions are those that direct us and motivate us from moment to moment. These are not strong emotions. So really being aware of your subtle emotions. As at the beginning, I was talking about this shy emotions, right? To really be tender with them too, and observing, noticing them. I'm not talking about the shyness as an emotion, but we can address that too. People are very shy about their shyness too. They're not very loud about it. But I'm talking about the subtle emotions that we are not. So these are really nice to start to tame and really bring them into our consciousness, into our conscious fold, and working with them. So. Because minute by minute we are motivated by those little subtle emotions, subtle positive, subtle negative, right? And even when we are doing this workshop, we have emotions. Yeah, I just needed to work on the attachment of doing another RSA because that wasn't the plan. So as we said, that it is very important to start practicing in your. So once you finish this RSA, that the way we are recommending that you practice it in real life, but also engage it first, because real life doesn't usually give us enough opportunity. So we want to engage our imagery in that process. So 3 times a day, you put yourself in the state of relaxation and you do what we call rational emotive imagery. You do the right side of this RSA. And it is a little bit differently that Michael does. Michael throws away the left side. I want the person to keep the left side, because whenever a negative emotion comes up, I want them to read both sides, how they create this distress and how they can resolve it. And if after reading that, they still have negative emotions intense, we want to look at maybe some other beliefs that were not addressed in this RSA that we can address. But that, as you can see, we can have different approaches, but most likely we don't have worse outcomes. But of course, we have our reasons to do it this way or the other. So
there is a question in the chat box from Karen. Are you going to address the stress test so I can know what that numbers means?
Okay, we will. We will address the stress test at the end, maybe before we do the RSA.
Andrew already addressed the scoring ranges by putting them in the chat, so you can take a look there.
Oh, okay. So thank you very much. I'm not watching for the chat because it distracts me, and then I can follow my own train of thought. And my own train of thought is already derailed. So this train. So can you put up the second poll, please? So the question is it possible to learn new complex skill without the use of imagination? Yes, so that is a very important question because we're talking about practicing imagination. So someone responded, or some people responded, yes, it's practicing in real life is enough. 27% said, I don't know. And 65% responded, no, when learning a new complex behavior, we first need to be able to imagine it and keep talking ourselves through it. That is a very important point. And yes, the long answer is correct one. With any complex behavior, and particularly athletes know that, if I want to learn a new, particularly acrobatics and stuff like that, that really first I need to be able to play it in my head. And Dr. Andrew is also a kiteboarder, and we know if you cannot do a trick in your head, you won't be able to land it on water. So you need to be able to do it in your head. And Maudsley was one of the first ones who applied this imagery with athletes in 1969. He trained athletes in that. So that is an incredible skill, and we know that we need to first be able to imagine it, and particularly like we are talking about these issues of race, that is important that we start imagining ourselves in these situations and acting in the way that you want to act and thinking the way we want to think in these situations. And so in order to have the results that we want. And now, if you are doing something in real life and it is new to you, you are talking yourself through each step of doing that. So you are this talking yourself through each step. It is use of imagination, right? So you cannot, so when you are learning, for example, to drive for the first time, remember your first driving lesson, you had to first say, now I do this, now I do that, now I do that. And by combining these complex behaviors, going through the ABCDs multiple times, you developed a habit of driving. And eventually you can drive without much conscious effort, right? So
Mariusz, let me add, one thing I also do in my life is teach yoga. And for beginner students, I actually discourage them from being in front of the mirror. I try to get them to position themselves somewhere where they cannot see themselves, because people get so focused on looking and trying to see that it was right. Instead, I try to use my words to tap into their imagination and say, imagine you opening your heart and imagine the arm reaching here. And they tend to learn the skills much more effective by imagining it and feeling it and doing it in their body rather than needing that visual stimulus to see how they're doing.
Yeah, thank you very much. Excellent point. So yes, and Maurice Ravel was the famous composer, and he lost the capacity to imagine, and also lost the capacity to compose. And so he could still play the piano. He was an excellent pianist, but he could only do what he developed a habit of doing before the brain injury. So, so here we are. So when you do this RSA, so we already said that you practice on the right side, you practice the left side. And you see, you may, and we noticed that you may not fully yet believe the things that you wrote on the right side. But then we asked you that you act and you, as for at least a week, as if you actually believe them 100%. And don't undermine yourself, your practice. Some people, oh, I'm faking it. No, you are not faking it. It is actual practice. Like when you're learning to speak a new language, you are not faking it that you speak it. You are butchering it, but it is part of practice. The same way, if you are learning a new instrument or a new piece on the piano or another instrument, you are not pretending that you know that you do it. You are practicing. So it is not faking it. It is not pretending. It is actually practicing it. So the attitude here is important, what Michael says. So if it is, some people say, fake it until you make it. It rhymes well, but it is not really faking it. It is really, really practicing it. So the attitude of it is very important. And then if you act in that way for a week, then recheck how much you believe the new beliefs. You will see that you believe them much more, because there was a mental practice, real life practice. The thing is that very often the real life practice comes at the times that we are not prepared. So we react in the habitual way. That makes so important that we practice new behaviors more often than the old behaviors, and only imagery allows us to do it. So, and again, when we practice in real life, we need to be practicing also in our imagination, because that is what drives the new behavior. So, all right, and if you could give and then expand it to other areas of your life, generalize this experience. So, all right, and then the last, Paul, if you could do it. Yeah, what is the new behavior I want to practice feels wrong and unnatural? So yeah, that is a trick question for those who answers, who already answered. And those who are still answering, remember, in these polls today, the longest answers are most correct ones. But we use them as a teaching opportunity. So can you show them the results? So, wow, that is the first workshop that I do that I had so many right answers. So all new behavior that is in conflict with old habits feels wrong, weird, awkward, and unnatural at the beginning. So that means that I have engaged in the healthy practice already. So when it feels wrong, that means that you are doing the right thing. Because like driving in England on the left-hand side of the road for us American drivers or continental drivers for the first time, it will feel weird, awkward, unnatural, wrong. But it doesn't mean that it is unnatural or wrong. It only means it is in conflict with my habits. So I need to keep talking to myself, stay to the left, stay driving on the left, and use my healthy driving, British driving thinking then, or but come on, we have driving on the left-hand side in Australia, in Indonesia, and Japan, and South Africa. So wherever we go, and that is left a left side traffic, we need to keep, in particular at the very beginning, keep reminding ourselves about it. So the use of imagination is here very critical. So this self-talk that drives me, that is the use of imagination in a healthy way. All right, so we would like to thank you very much for all your participation. We will, Alexandra and Andrew, do you want to add something at the end before I want to lead people into a brief rational emotive imagery exercise on racial, on this RSA that we did on race?
It would be great if we have a couple minutes at the end just to discuss the next steps, and thank you.
And just to say thank you to everyone for being with us for such a long period of time.
So,
12 weeks is a long time.
Yeah. All right, thank you very much, Michael. So we will do the exercise and then we will stay online for 10-15 minutes to maybe address some questions. Right? So Andrew, if you could show the right side of this RSA, that would be great, because that is what we are going to be practicing. So imagine now, just take a exhale, and exhale stress and tension that you may be experiencing. And if you do a deep, long exhale, then inhalation, breathing in comes naturally. So breathe out, extend the breathing out, and let the air come in. And think about yourself. Think about as if it was your issue about race. So think about the event that the race issues came up in your own thinking. And but this time, you want to see yourself being as calm or as least upset as you think is healthiest for you by thinking healthy thoughts and seeing yourself acting in a healthy way. And you can achieve it by thinking healthy thoughts. So we have decided, and just for the purpose of this exercise and learning the process, just think a new healthy thought and stay with it for at least half a minute by maintaining the calm breathing. I'm learning to accept this problem as calmly as possible. And I'm looking at the causes and reasons of these shootings that are happening. And I'm looking at myself. If there is anything that I can do to prevent them. And you may add your own beliefs in this process at the end. You may now focus on the belief, while racism is systemic and awful, there are other values on which this country is founded, as well as there are many people who oppose this type of inequality. So maintaining the calm, while racism is systemic and awful, there are also other important values on which this country is founded, as well as there are many of those who oppose this type of inequality. Both the values that we have on which this country is founded, as well as the people that follow these values. And I have no influence on the behavior and actions of others, but I can influence my own behavior and contributing to changing this inequality. So yes, I have no influence on the past and what led to this situation, but I can influence my own behavior right now and contributing to changing this inequality in the future. And this situation is also hopeful because we already have a foundation of anti-discrimination laws. And you can build on these laws and expand these laws to eliminate the inequality, multiple inequalities. So people were struggling about it in the past and they were able to pass these laws. And we can keep on the work and build on them. And now formulate your own thought that would be healthy and practice it for another half a minute. That would allow you to stay as calm or as least upset as possible in the situation and act in the way that you would like to act. And now very gently return to your usual state of consciousness, become more aware of the lights, the sounds, and the presence of other people. And as soon as you're ready, just go ahead and open your eyes. So thank you very much for your participation. And we will, I know that we caught overtime a little bit with question and answers after the webinar, but it is my responsibility, but I cannot change it anymore. So please forgive me, and we will have some closing comments. I really appreciated many comments that we received both on the Facebook page, and we want to continue with the Facebook page. We want to keep it alive, and we want to continue with these discussions that we have. And so now we are open for questions and comments. And thank you all of you for participating. So Andrew, if you have any questions or comments that you wanted to make while we still have some audience.
So as you said, as we decided we're gonna keep running our Facebook pages, we're just gonna change the name of them to ABC of Your Emotions and continue talking about this. Regarding thank you everyone who filled in our service. We're gonna follow up with some additional informations. And I would like to invite everyone who is still looking for some tools to self-help. You can register to our application, let's call it waiting list, and be the first ones who are going to receive it in the upcoming time. So I'm going to paste in a link here in the chat. So if you go into this link, you can register your email there, and you're going to be the first one who's going to receive it, and will be very helpful for your feedback too. And And thank you, Michael, Mariusz, and Ola for opportunity of working together on this. It was a great run. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that you provided wonderful, not just technical skills. That would be, but you provided really your presence and your personality here, and we really appreciate that. So thank you very much, Alexandra.
We have some questions in the chat box, and Mitch is asking, where is the new You and Your Emotions book coming out in English?
Michael?
Yeah.
We hope to finish it before the end of this year. So.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much to everyone, and it's actually a great opportunity to work with you all, especially in the very difficult times where we all live in the different places around the world. So thank you so much. It was a pleasure, and I'm hoping for much more. Thanks.
Oh, thank you, Alexandra. It's been such a joy working with you online and offline, and Alexandra and her daughter Dominica are crucial in helping us getting the English version of the book published. So thank you very much. And we may be also publishing short versions in the future, addressing different specific issues, addressing different populations for just. So we already have a plan for some, because the book itself, it's over 270 pages, 250 new cartoons, and so this is a pretty big book. So we may be also following it with some smaller books addressing specific issues. So thank you very much. And your personality is absolutely, I don't know. I'm your skill and personality combined together. It's no words to really describe. And Michael, it is such a great privilege working with you. But I will let you say a few words.
Well, thank you, Mariusz, for pulling me into yet another adventure. There's been more over the years, most of which I couldn't talk about publicly, but
but they were pleasant.
So it's been wonderful getting to know Andrew and Ola and a lot of the participants who've been here every week. And I was thinking a few minutes ago about, for those of you who've been here from the beginning, you've sat through 12 two-hour webinars. You spent 24 hours, one day of your life, working on your emotional self-help and taking care of yourself. And I really do believe that if you continue to practice these skills and think about them and share them with other people, that is one day of your life that really can change everything that comes next. So thank you, all of you. This has been great, and I look forward to seeing you in other contexts as we move forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Michael. I mean, that is you're such a great friend and such a competent rational behavioral therapist, and that is. And I always learn from you while we are doing those things, and why didn't I think about that? So, but it reminds me sometimes Moldvi, when I came up with some idea, his response was, "Oh, why didn't I think about it?" He would actually say it out loud. I keep it to myself usually. So, and yes, and thank you all for participating with us. And yes, even if you haven't been on live webinars, the recordings, all of that is actually 24 hours of recordings. You can play them, and we encourage you to play them because you will notice how those things sink in with time. And also what you do in between, doing your own work, you know everything that you need to know to do it. So, and if you don't, there is the Facebook page that you can ask questions, or you can jump into one of the webinars. They are pretty well described, and I'm going to work on the Facebook page from the beats the-odds.org/webinars. All webinars are going to be described, and there will be links to each recording, and all the resources that Andrew has prepared for us. So thank you all very much. And if there are any more questions in the chat, Alexandra will be happy to respond to them.
There are no questions at the moment, but I'm just posting some links to our Facebook group. It's ABC of Your Emotions During Pandemic, and also I will add the link to your website, videos, as well, that people can join and use the resources which are online in English.
Thank you very much. And yeah, and thank you very much. Sweet comments. I mean, I see very sweet comments that you put in the chat. We really appreciate your responses, and that is warming our hearts, because that is the purpose of us volunteering this time to really share everything that we have to know, with you. Of course, there is more to learn, but this is, you can by applying what we taught you, you can get there yourself. So thank you very much, and yes, and the Facebook page is going to be renamed to You and Your Emotions, just like that. Yeah, and I see Mitch has been the frequent visitor, and he sent us a lot of nice comments throughout the webinars. And I know Femke, you've been very active. Janie, thank you very much. I mean, I don't want to miss anyone, but some people were here. Susie, great comments. And Judith, Diana was, oh yeah, Diana was very much engaged in many comments. Karen and Mary, yes, Mary. I mean, we really, your engagement in these. Oh, Lorena, yes, thank you very much for your comments too, so that is very important, because we could do it successfully only because of your input, because otherwise it is like talking to the air, and we don't know. And saying your faces, of all those of you who allowed us see your faces, is also great, because we have like immediate feedback. Oh yes, we have some response. I mean, I couldn't do a podcast because I need people. So thank you for integrating with us socially while keeping physical distance. And we will remain there for you, and you will be receiving. We'll stay in touch with you. So thank you all. And Marcia, yes, so many people, Elizabeth, and everyone who participate in our chats. Thank you and goodbye. Dr. Spock, Mr. Spock.